Freedom now, I think, has to be the goal of anybody who is sincere.
The idea of integration was considered a ridiculous and frivolous joke by his counterparts.
I'm sorry, our management does not allow us to serve niggers in here.
Nevertheless, Kelly Miller Smith's ideal and strategy was to always aim for the moon with their requests.
We want everything right now. We should go down here and talk to these people. And always, I would start, whenever I had the opportunity to start it, I would start the conference by saying, we would like to have your business desegregated by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, since you're closing within a few minutes today. You aim at the moon and try to get it and get close to it as one possibly can.
And Nashville became the first major city in the South to permit whites and Negroes to eat together in public places. The Nashville settlement was studied closely by other communities. By midsummer, a total of 27 cities had opened their lunch counters to all customers. There have been no disorders as a result, and none of the merchants affected has reported any loss in business. But the chain reaction started by the sit-ins is far from complete.
My statement has always fallen on very unsympathetic ears when I say that no amount of progress is satisfactory, because progress suggests process. It suggests a piecemeal kind of thing, and none of that is really satisfactory. What we want is not progress, we want complete freedom. We want everything right now.
Good afternoon. It has been a very enriching, very enlightening, very illuminating symposium thus far. We've already looked at some matters as it pertains to faith. We had some outstanding conversations that went on at the beginning of the day. We've also had some very engaging understandings as it pertains to policy. And as it involves this whole business of activism. Now we get to the last segment of our symposium for today, and that is dealing with the matters of justice, It is interesting that perhaps the most visible sign of concerns, the most visible ways in which we're able to see and to know of concerns and the injustice and the things that are happening in the world around us is this whole matter of justice, or as we see too often, the business of injustice. My dad oftentimes addressed issues of justice, and it's unfortunate that too often when persons are engaged in civil rights and social justice issues, that they simply look at the things that they do and not the things that got them there. When we were talking about faith, we talked about the undergirding that people had. We talked about policy, we talked about the laws that are effective in terms of the land. Now we're talking about the issues of justice. How do we help to bring about justice? When we see these protests that are going on in the streets, how do we find that it translates into there being a change in terms of what happens within municipalities, what happens within federal governments, and things of that nature? And so the protests that we see are oftentimes because of our matters of justice or the injustices that we see. And so we've come now, and actually we're going to have two panels that are going to be talking with us during the course of this day. And as we bring the sessions to its culminating parts in this ending here. And the first panel is going to be led by, let me get my paperwork right in front of me, is led by Dr. Teresa Smallwood, who's there on the faculty of Vanderbilt Divinity School. We will also have Micky ScottBey Jones, who's with Faith Matters Network, as well as Jamel Campbell-Gooch, who's with Gideon's Army, and then Dawn Harrington, who's with Free Hearts. Dr. Smallwood is going to do a more full introduction of these who are part of the panel. We are excited about the fact that all of them have come to share with us, and we're looking forward to what they have to share. Dr. Smallwood, thank you very much.
And thank you so much, sir. What a privilege it is to be with you all today. And I want to just take a point of privilege to say that my dear sister and colleague in the faith and in the movement work, Ms. Shatika Brown, you have done a marvelous job. And I am very, very proud of the work that you're doing with Kelly Miller Smith and the work that you have done over the years for both the Institute as well as the Divinity School. You are truly a jewel. This afternoon, I have the absolute excited position to talk to some of the most important voices in Nashville, in movement work, in the context of what we call justice. And I am indeed excited about the folk that you will have with us today to talk about the work they're doing, but also about the ways in which we have a trajectory towards justice, perhaps even some ways that we haven't experienced it yet. I am indeed, probably I'll go with alpha order, Jamel Campbell-Gooch. Mr. Gooch is the Deputy Director of Gideon's Army. In his role, he works to dismantle, defund, and destroy the school-to-prison pipeline through developing and maintaining the strategic plans of their programming, diversifying revenue streams, building and maintaining relationships with community leaders, and leveraging North Nashville. I am also indeed happy to have with us Ms. Dawn Harrington. Dawn is the Executive Director of the Free Hearts and is also Director of Special Projects for the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. She has a bachelor's degree in Recording Industry Management and Public Relations from Middle Tennessee State University and a Master of Business Administration degree, Information Technology from Bethel University. Was disturbed by the impact of incarceration on families, especially moms and kids, and inspired to make a difference upon her release. Today, Ms. Harrington is director, and in that position, she is a fellow who gives advisory board information to the Defenders and Unheard Voices outreach. She also directs Free Heart, that was created to reunite families and keep families together by providing support, education, and advocacy, organizing families impacted by incarceration. And then finally, my sojourner in the faith, Micky ScottBey Jones, is the Director of Healing and Resilience Initiatives. Micky ScottBey Jones goes by she, her diva, because she is the justice doula, accompanies her people, and that is really what justice doula means. She accompanies her people as they birth more love, justice, and shalom into our world. As a womanist, faith-rooted, contemplative activist, healer, movement chaplain, certified Enneagram coach, and trainer and nonviolence practitioner, Micky supports students, clergy, activists, and everyday leaders in a variety of roles as a speaker, a writer, a facilitator, a pilgrimage guide, consultant, and teacher. As she directs the resilience and healing initiatives with the Faith Matters Network, which is a core She's a core team member with the People's Supper, and they've gathered more than 10,000 people around the table since 2016, since that election. She's a lifelong learner and has a BS in Consumer and Family Sciences, a MA in Intercultural Studies from NAIITS, Portland Seminary, and many, many other certifications and trainings as she's gone through. This afternoon, not to prolong the introductions, but to move forward into the concept of justice then and now, and most particularly as we focus on these fine people, I'd like you each to take just a few minutes to introduce yourselves. Talk about the things on your heart and mind that are really compelling you to move forward in the work. And as I turn it over to you, I want to say that we have hummed and sung the songs of justice throughout the streets of America and the world. But I still say that the mantra must be no justice, no peace. What say you? Let's start with you, Micky.
Thank you, Dr. Smallwood, for that glorious introduction. And just thank you to Shatika Brown and Vanderbilt Divinity School and all who put together this event. You know, we're all doing our best to put things together online these days, and there are always so many challenges. And also just the challenge of that, in some ways we're heartbroken that we can't be together in this time. So I'm holding that in my heart as I watched earlier today, people like Reverend Lawson and Reverend Blackman, who I've been able to be with in person before, and then like not being able, you know, like kind of mourning that our space together is gone. And in this panel, and, you know, normally we would get to greet each other and, you know, people whose names we've heard and have known in the community, but haven't had a chance to kind of sit down with and hang out with. And this is the best we got right now. So I'm holding that tension in my heart that sometimes this is part of the way we gain community and get to know each other. And so that's something that I'm deeply missing as this whole coronavirus thing and all that's been going on in the world has impacted me personally. Some of you know that I lost my mother to COVID-19. And so I've taken this extremely seriously and been at home a lot. My whole life has changed in that I was always on the road and always on the go, and that has changed for me. So both that deep gratitude and for other ways to do things, right? The way we're able to harness technology and be together, and the way I've seen our people innovate and still find a way to be together, and the way that we are practicing new ways and new possibilities, but also heartbroken at the pieces that feel like have been on hold or that we've lost. So that's me. I'm somebody who's always kind of holding those kinds of tensions together, right? I'm a mom. I live in a small southern town just outside of Nashville. And I live with my kids and navigate being in community with people who don't always have my best interests at heart. And also having a larger, wider, worldwide community of people that I do get to walk side by side with. And so it's just, I'm really grateful to be here with you all today and explore what activism looks like, what we learn, you know, kind of Sankofa from our ancestors and elders, and what it looks like to me moving forward. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Jamel?
Thank you for that. I'm honored. I'm honored and humbled to be here. And as I think about how to introduce myself, the words that you just rung out when you said like, what is it today? And I'm here, you know. My name is Jamel Campbell-Gooch. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the Deputy Director of Gideon's Army. And I'm here to tell you we live in a time of revolutionary potential. those issues, those things that have been generationally harming Black folks disproportionately, it is time for them to end. I'm just here to spread that word, y'all. We got freedom. That's the message. From this point on, we are not backing down. We are not stopping until we win. And we've already won, as the good book will tell us. So I'm here today. What's moving my heart and what I'm trying to hold is this revolutionary potential that the people are feeling right now. The people are rising, y'all. And when it comes to Gideon's Army and our work, when it comes to Free Hearts and their work, and the countless organizations in Nashville doing groundwork together, building up that grassroots and maximize that revolutionary potential that the people are feeling now, I'm holding all of that, y'all. And I'm coming in radical love, radical peace, radical listening, deep understanding. And y'all, hey, I am so excited to be able to have this conversation, to be able to sit on this panel, be able to share these ideas, and come in the honor of Reverend Kelly, C.T. Vivian, Bernard Lafayette, Diane Nash, the countless students that were expelled for skipping school, for participating in the sit-ins, the countless students and the unheard voices that are moving in our streets, that are the drumbeat of revolutionary change. And I'm just honored and deeply humbled and deeply coming in the space of love. So I'm excited. I'm ready to get it going. I don't have the words to express how excited I am to be here. I would not have chose to be around at any other moment other than 2020. It's here, y'all. We can love ourselves through this. We can heal through this, and we can radically change the material environment for our Black boys, our Black girls, our Black non-binary, and everybody that is experienced that is rooted in Blackness. So I'm just really excited.
Thank you so much. Dawn?
I love that energy. I love that energy. I just saw that in the chat, Jamel, and that's comrade right there. And so just a little bit about me. I am from Nashville, from North Nashville, was born in Hubbard Hospital. And I'm an abolitionist. And our organization, Free Hearts, we're led by formerly incarcerated women. And we provide support, education, and advocacy in organizing families that are impacted by incarceration. Our ultimate goals are reuniting families and keeping families together. And what that looks like is on one side of the work, we do the direct services where we go into the jail, juvenile, and prison, and work with women and girls. And we go into schools and work with children whose parents are incarcerated or deported. We also work with families that are trying to impact the outcomes of their loved ones' cases and trying to get their loved ones out home to them. I don't know if anyone saw, it warmed my heart yesterday, a family, had a billboard on Jefferson about their loved one that they love. And, one of our comrades in Knoxville always says that love can't be caged. And so, we have a weekly meeting with warrior family members that are fighting with their lives to bring their loved ones home. And, but on the other side of the work, because we know what led us into incarceration was not us, being bad people. And there were systems in place. There was lack of infrastructure, lack of investment in us, unresolved trauma, and all of the things that the disinvestment in our community has caused that led us into incarceration. And so the other side of the work is working to, build infrastructure and change the policies that hold us back. So part of that, we're building alternatives to incarceration. We passed a law, community-based alternatives to incarceration for primary caregivers, where primary caregivers can be given the option to do alternative to incarceration in the community, where their family doesn't get broken up, where they don't lose their housing, and can still be held accountable, but actually get the needs met, the underlying need that led someone into incarceration. And we also have a bail fund land trust that we're building, where we're working to build some of the folks in our participatory defense program out. And shout out to Riding to the Core Coalition, which we're also, working on a close and repurpose MDF campaign, and know we need to decarcerate as well. But the thing is with the bail fund land trust is when we're able to get people out, they're coming out to nothing. And so we know our communities need land, our communities need housing. That the housing and land is a big part of the alternatives to incarceration, and need dignified work. And so we're also have a fund to build cooperative businesses, to build cooperative housing and cooperative land trusts for formerly incarcerated and other marginalized people. And just always fighting to decarcerate and bring our loved ones home, and expand access to the electorate. I'm just getting able to vote this year after 10 years, and it was so hard. And we've been helping over 1,000 people right now to restore their rights to vote. We have one of the most complicated laws in any state. We're also seeing a lot of not having access to vote in jail, and so just building power towards, because we know when we overcome all of these obstacles, we're going to be a powerful people, a powerful voting bloc that can hold, our people accountable, and so we're always just base building to build power, coalition building as well. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Wow. You all are so heavy duty that it's hard for me to figure out where I want. I mean, it's just so many things, right? But I think I want to start with something Jamel said about we're free. Because, I could take issue with that, right? But I know that that's a hopeful statement. Just like Black Lives Matter, supposed to be a declaration, not a question mark on the end of the statement, right? And so the question for me is, and I have to tell you that I'm after the pose this question to you, because Angela makes the statement in one of her annotated volumes that freedom is a constant struggle. And so I ask you, all of you, how do we, with the backdrop of our ancestors? See, when Micky invoked Sankofa, she's requiring of us that we look back like the Sankofa bird. So how do we invoke this notion of justice and this notion of freedom in our present moment, using our ancestral history as a backdrop? What do we do? You can jump in however you feel.
Yeah, so I'll jump in first. Not only is it a everyday struggle, it's a protracted struggle too. We know this. And so what do? We build power, like Don was saying. Recently, we've been working on what a participatory democracy space called the Black National Assembly, where we've been meeting, where Black folks have been meeting together in Black autonomous spaces and coming up with a shared community vision. And based on that shared community vision, we know that we can not only get freer, we can protect that freedom. We can cloak that freedom, and we can safeguard anything that comes and tries to take that freedom away. So what we can do, we can build community, build powers amongst ourselves, solve these issues with a shared community vision, and really come together and get away from thinking about these things as uniform but getting towards unity. Everybody don't have to show up the same. We can all show up differently, connect on what we agree on, and really work towards sharing and seeing ourselves in the future. So that vision part I think is extremely important when it comes to even visualizing what freedom is?
I could jump in. We have a creed with Free Hearts, and part of it is I'm not free until she is free. We are not free until we are all free. And I think that freedom is an interconnected struggle as well. And I think that if we don't if we allow, you know, groups of people to be not free and just look the other way as if that's not even happening. I mean, right now, in our United States Constitution and in our state constitution, when slavery was abolished, it was for everybody except for those convicted of a crime. So really, you know, slavery was not abolished. And, you know, and hopefully we'll be able to reckon with that on a state ballot in 2022, hopefully, and shout out to the comrades at No Exceptions that have been leading that work. But I mean, if we allow, you know, for slavery to still happen, for the mass incarceration, like our state is, you know, we lead in like our incarceration rates are going up and the rest of the country is going down. And in the same time, like the violent crimes, it hasn't had any effect on that. And that's significant when 34 states that have reduced their, you know, incarceration have also reduced, you know, violent crime and recidivism. We are leading in all of the worst things. And so we have to understand, if this is not your issue, how all of our freedoms are interconnected, and we can't be free until the next person is free.
So for me, as I was thinking about our time here together today, I went back to the words of one of my elders, one of the elders of the Southern Freedom Movement, Mama Ruby Sales, who said, "We have to begin to have a conversation that incorporates a vision of love with a vision of outrage." And you know, my work is really about accompaniment and care and healing and resilience building in our movement spaces, so that we can actually stay in these movements long term, because we have to have a sustainable leadership. And the thing is, we, you know, because when the next generation comes in, especially I think right now, like we're often not connected to what happened before us. And yet we have a wealth of things that we can go back to. We have ancestors and elders who can guide us. And not that they guide us in a way that we have no voice, that we don't do things in our way. Absolutely. We still get to 100% forge our new way. And we have this foundation that has so much wisdom, ways that they got through, that are so valuable to inform how we can get through today. And so I think really incorporating that the love within our outrage, even just starting with each other. You know, one of my favorite phrases, and I don't know where it came from, is let's be careful with each other so that we can be dangerous together. And I want to be dangerous to those systems of oppression that are trying to kill us, that are trying to hold us back, that keep us from caring about each other, right? Who allow us to put someone in prison and not care about them anymore. We've been taught to forget and to despise people who have been incarcerated. And it doesn't have to be that way. And we can teach ourselves a different way. And it hasn't always been that way. So how do we relearn those pathways of love? And be so radical, right? Returning to the roots of that love, of that communal love, where we don't allow us to be put in, you know, different pieces, but we realize that we actually share a oneness that is just this powerful force that allows us to fight together. And so that's why for me, my lane, my obsession is this: how do we care for each other? How do we accompany each other as we're doing this movement work? And that's the piece that I bring and that I hope to share with other people, is like, how do we actually care for each other as we're doing this movement work? Because I think we can actually have love and outrage together at the same time.
Wow, thank you. I realize that my connection may be a bit unstable, so I'm going to try and put my questions in the chat so you can at least know where I'm coming from if I break up. But you know, you all have reflected deeply, and our ancestral history is worth, you know, thinking about, because they were up against some serious stuff, and they put Jim Crow in the grave. They marched. They did all of those things, and we're doing some of the same things too. But what I noticed about the Black Lives Matter movement is that it has a kind of quotidian nature. It's just everywhere all at once, which gives are much more powerful than people have assessed us to be. And so the question then becomes for me, what policies must we change for our communities to experience the kind of justice that we are envisioning that they have experienced injustice? Anybody?
I could go, but it's not going to be an exhaustive list because I think we have a long way to go when it comes to policies in this state. But I will name a few. One of which is, you know, we have one of the highest life sentences. We've seen, you know, we definitely need sentencing reform. We definitely need, just policies that divest from the criminal justice system, period, that we're spending so much money on, and that puts that investment into our community, are very important. Also just, and that's connected to also the budget. And Jamel spoke earlier about the Black Nashville Assembly, and people are starting to pay a lot more attention and just seeing and having that outrage about, you know, how our priorities are not being reflected in these processes, and just really getting used to that. So I think we definitely need a budget, a people's budget, on all levels of government. And also, I just want to mention around voting. I think that, you know, I always like to bring up, there was a period when I was born, there was a period in the 70s and the early 80s where nobody lost their right to vote. No one was disenfranchised in Tennessee. And that was not that long ago. And that's a vision we need to work back towards, because us over 456,000 people in this state, think about, you know, if we can get our voting rights back, we could flip this state. You know, there's a lot of things we can do to hold people accountable, and we probably wouldn't be there with all of this mass incarceration, because the people who are impacted with it, by it, will have a say-so. And so, yeah, those are some of the policies: more community-based alternatives, more, a lot of work around the child welfare system, a lot of work around the criminalization of poverty, the way that the system is much different, whether you have money or you don't, whether that's bail, whether that's fines and fees, whether that's electronic monitoring fees, probation fees, you know, access to defense, and all of those things. We have a lot of work around reproductive justice. It's just so many policies, and I will stop there.
So I will say I am not a policy person. I'm always like, I don't know anything about politics. It's not my lane. My lane is loving on the people. is being that, you know, accompanier is sitting down on the sidewalk with somebody. I'm thankful for the other two panelists who can talk about that, but I want to talk about how we have policies in our communities and in our families and in the ways that we organize. We don't call them policies, you know, but we have our ways of being together, right? The rules and the things that we've said are our norms and are our agreements. And, you know, right now, you know, we're saying abolition, I feel like more than we have in a long time. And people want to talk about prison abolition and police abolition. And then we still want to punish each other. We still want to do away with someone who has done harm or done wrong. And we don't know how to bring abolition down to the level of interpersonal, right? We still want someone to suffer at the highest level when they've done us wrong. Now, obviously, there needs to be a way to address harm. There needs to be a way to address violence. I'm not saying it should be a free-for-all. What I'm saying is we have to figure out how things happen on the interpersonal level and go up. You know, Adrienne Marie Brown says small is all, right? That things can fractal out, right? And there has to be some way that we experiment with a different way. We all know that police showing up to someone's mental health crisis does not help the situation. Especially if you're Black or brown, most of the time, you're probably gonna end up dead. So we have to have other ways, but we don't necessarily know those ways. So we have to have different policies in our homes, in our organizing communities, right? Someone screws up in our organizing community and we just get them out of there. That's it. So what are other ways that we could actually have different ways of belonging to each other and doing our policies in our community groups that would allow us to then have an imagination for how these policies are actually going to work on a nationwide scale? I think that's what sits before us right now.
Yeah, and I love to hop in like real quick, and I also want to say, Micky, loving on the people is a policy. Like we gotta have that as a standard of governance. So that is politics. Loving on the people is politics, for sure. And I also want to center that all of our systems right now of accountability, whether it's in the classroom, community, or in the courts, are all about centering the punishment. How many days is this person going to be suspended? How long are they going to be in prison? It's not about centering the harm. So the first thing we can start doing from a thought perspective, in a dialogue perspective, is start centering the harm that people are actually feeling, both the person who is being harmed and the person who is harming others. And then lastly, I also want to say, me very specifically, I started this work in a nonprofit world. I worked for the Oasis Center for a while. And one thing that they were constantly drilling in the nonprofit world is put yourself out of business. Come from a standpoint where you're eliminating the problem, right? And that's why we have to imagine from an abolitionist standpoint, because none of our systems are created that way. Our courts are not created in a way where they don't want any courts. Our prisons or our cages are not created in a way where they don't want any prisoners, right? Even our policing is not creating in a way where they don't want any police. And further, and I'll wrap it up, and as we come in the spirit of Reverend Kelly, our civil rights leaders have asked for the same things over and over again, and they've always got police. Malcolm, Ballad of the Bullet, police. Diane Nash, do you believe in segregation? Police. Every single time when it comes to Black folks in their need, we always get police as a way to reconcile it. So I think we need to struggle very specifically in Tennessee, in Nashville, in the country, and across this globe, our relationship with police. We already function with them like they can stop something, right? Police do not do law enforcement. They do order maintenance. And so the question that I have for other folks that are listening, that I think folks need to struggle through, is when they do order maintenance, who is at the bottom of that order?
What a profound question, Jamel. Now, I want to frame this next question. I put into the chat, but I want to frame it. I understand from you, Dawn, that you have been working with the Southeast Center for Cooperative Development. I also understand that you have been doing some what you call profile shout outs, if you will, on your Facebook page. Cooperatives that are really doing some huge work in the nation. And it's very important, I think, to know about people like who run things like New Economy or the Tennessee Fund or the Progressive Club that you spotlighted. But now, when we talk about then and now, the Club, they were some progressive folks back in 1948. I mean, they were serious. But there were some church people, too, that were serious about meant, right? Justice Dusa, communal in their capacity to look out for one another. And I grew up in that context, having been born in 1959. So the question I'm posing is, why should we think about cooperatives now? You know, collective efforts now. And that can mean collective bargaining. It can mean buying, building, you know, all of the land trust concepts. But why should we think about that now, given, you know, the need that our people have for labor and employment that is sustainable, and the idea that gentrification is moving us out of communities we've lived in for 30 years? Why should we do these kinds of things? And if we should do them, if you think we should, what kind of organizing will this require?
I can start off. I think there's no time better than now. I think that, you know, we have to build infrastructure in our communities. And, you know, we're just at the bottom of all the totem poles. And we have to be able to build this infrastructure. But the way that the capitalist system has taught us is not the way we want to build this infrastructure. We want to go back to our roots as like a village community and figure this out together. I think it's necessary in this time right now, because it's the other thing is it's not just now too, because it's a long history that we're a part of, a long legacy that we're a part of. If you haven't gotten a chance to read it, Collective Courage by Jessica Gordon Rembrandt, that was where I first learned about co-ops, and was definitely like, this is what our people need, you know. And we started, you know, educating people on it, and you know, we still have a long way to go, but it's needed, because the thing is, the future is collective. This individualistic, you know, pipe dream that we've been sold, it doesn't work for us. It's only working for a very few people. And so we have to build infrastructure that is, you know, benefits the majority of people and not just the small few, like in the capitalist system. So we have to build a new economy. We have to build new democratic procedures that actually you know, include everyone, instead of, you know, letting the big corporations or whoever has the most money, or these elected officials that are not, you know, operate, and not that all elected officials are not, but it shouldn't be led by a person. And this individualistic nature needs to be abolished. And the future is cooperative, the future is collective. That is how we're going to get to a better place as a community. I can drop it in there.
Yeah, and the thing that came up for me was again referencing Reverend Lawson, who was on earlier today, was he talks about parallel systems, right? So, yes, we are trying to dismantle systems of oppression um, and bad policies statewide and nationally and even internationally, but at the same time, we build parallel systems of what we want to see, right? That's freedom schools. We're parallel systems of education so that we could be educated in Black history and in the things that we needed to know about voting, et cetera, right? So what are the parallel systems that we're building in every way, right? We still need to, or maybe want to have access to these other systems. For me, again, talking about healing and resilience building and accompaniment, do we want to see more access to healthcare and mental health care and support systems for Black people, other people of color, Indigenous folks, queer folks? Yes. And how can we make our own systems that serve those needs at the same time? I'm a movement chaplain. I train movement chaplains. You can't be a movement chaplain by yourself. You need a crew. And so we are seeing people form these crews where they can, of movement chaplains, of healers, of clergy, of community leaders who are saying we are going to take care of each other emotionally, spiritually, relationally. We are going to do that care for one another. And it's not the same as clinical care, but it is a level of care. And then it also grows people who can then become clinical care providers. It's a parallel system that creates what we need at the same time. And so I think that's what we're seeing happen with mutual aid, with cooperatives. We're seeing people say, we're going to make it ourselves. And again, people have been doing that. It's not new. We can find where that's happened in the past. The Hardings were also referenced, and they had the Mennonite house in Atlanta where they took care of people. At one point, they had a grocery store as part of their house. Like, they took care of the needs of people around their kitchen table in different ways that created another system running alongside of the systems we had in place. And so we can go back and see those examples and learn from them. And we can also innovate and create the ones that work for us today.
And what's emerging from me, as Micky just laid down that beautiful game, is that the people want something new. Like, the people just want something new. And the things that we're even talking about, like what was referenced, are not new. But there's certain things that we could be doing together while building that parallel and against that would also change our material environments right now, whether it is participatory democracy structure, where the structures of democracy are literally built to where me and you, the folks with 9 to 5s who are on the ground, can actually participate. And it's not an elitist democracy where the people who have time, who have money, who have resources are the ones that maximizing political power at all the time, all the way down to ranked choice voting, where we literally can rank out, and it's not an either or when we're participating, right? So I think these co-ops, mutual aid, participatory democracy, it is the people reaching for something new. Even, I get homies that tell me all the time, like, all of these people are telling me to vote, but they ain't giving me nothing new to vote for. So it's like almost like a reluctancy happened. And even in that nuance, that person is telling me, I just want something new. That's all I want. Because these things that have been built to harm Black folks are being propped up by people who make a profit off of us being harmed. And so at this point in time of revolutionary potential, it is time, y'all. It's time. It's time to end all of that, to build it. We need everyone, right? When it comes to change, I had somebody break it down to me like this. We need people with, within, and against, right? Even when we talk about the civil rights legacy that we exist in Nashville, there were always people with, within, and against when it came to any sort of change. So that's what's emerging for me. The people are rising and they want something new.
Well, we have question that I've seen in the question and answer chat, and I want to frame that one as well. You all have really, really piqued my interest in this about something called Soul City. If you know anything about Soul City, then you know the name Floyd rights activist and someone who worked in Congress to really get monies to fund a city that was run completely by Black folks. And it was a collective idea. But Soul City allegedly failed because the government, first of all, did not come through with the funds it had promised Mr. McKissick. And then there were other issues around the building and so forth. But I bring that up because obviously, effective collective, we've got to really care about one another from the places where we're hurting the most to the places where we are helping the most. And one of the things that I am really tired of personally is seeing people who have mental illness be shot down in the streets by police, and seeing people who don't have any real amplified voice. Everybody has a voice, but not all have an amplified voice. And I'm wondering, like this question that was posed to us, what you think about this. They say this: many of our people are so afraid of anyone with mental health issues and mental health illness in general. If we're going to have a collective community, how do we overcome this? Any of you can.
I'll hop in. To this question, I would answer this with the question, and I think the answer is somewhere in here. Who taught you to hate them? Who taught you to fear them? Who taught you that, right? When we even talk about poverty, who taught you that poverty, people are impoverished because of their inability to make decisions or an addiction? Who taught you that? And then once you come to that solution, once you come to that answer, I would ask you this question: and do they make a profit off of that? Do they make a profit off of us remaining poor? Do they make a profit off of you being afraid of your next door neighbor that may have a mental illness? And then once we get there, that is the target that we need to move. Because like I said before, and like some of these other panelists have talked about, there are people who profit off of us harming and being punitive to each other. And some of those people may even be on this call. But I know one thing: we have to start centering the harm, even when it comes to those things, right? We have been socialized to believe that people with a mental illness are a threat to us. We've been socialized through television shows, through the news, through all of those devices. And what I'm going to say is we have to start by fighting back against that and healing from that socialization in order to even imagine a solution to where we're not afraid of that person anymore. So I would start with that question, that deep searching, that listening. Who taught you this thing? Because you were not born having that fear.
I think that's a wonderful question to ask. And I just have to add that I think that we just need more support. You know, we're looking, I mean, if we knew we were in a supportive community and, you know, we didn't have these options that, okay, I don't have really anything to do, you know, if this happens, like if we build our own, that's why it's important for us to collectively build together the society that we want to live in. And so that would include support for our people with mental health issues. That would include support for trauma and a bunch of other issues that we have. And so we won't, the fear, I love that question, like who taught us to fear? And part of that is because they planned on throwing us away. And so, you know, I think if we're in a supportive, if we build a supportive community, then why do we have to fear our own people? all we have to do is build something that supports our people.
And I think we have to learn to move at the speed of trust. The time is urgent, right? No doubt we are in a time of urgency, as we always have been. Was there less urgency during the period of enslavement? Was there less urgency during the Southern Freedom Movement? No, there's always been a sense of urgency, and we feel that, and it's true. But what is also true is that we actually, if we put our actual humanity on the altar in order to reach whatever this thing is, this freedom that we think exists, then we actually won't get there. Like, the means is the ends. We actually have to, create the new world as we're going towards it. And so I think how we organize with each other actually matters. And so asking what it takes to build trust, listening to people who it takes more time to listen to, right? A lot of times, people get awakened to an injustice, and you want to go out and start organizing, or you want to become an activist, you want to get involved, yada, yada, yada. And, there are going to be people that think differently from you, who are in a different socioeconomic status from you. And we need to be listening to all of those people that have a stake. And so how do we do that? How do we actually, organize at the speed of trust so that it's, that's happening in a real way? And so there's something about how we actually and I just keep centering this in the things that I do. Like, sometimes I get invited into rooms and I'm like, I don't do any of this stuff that y'all do. But what I am here to say is how we treat each other in this room actually matters to whether or not we're going to get to what we want to get to. And so I think that is like rediscovering that commitment to each other's humanity is key in how we're actually going to get to the liberation that we're so desperate for and that we actually want to see happen in our lifetimes.
Well, I want to just tell you, thank you. You all have been absolutely inspirational. I asked the question about the collectives because I believe that is the way forward. And I'm very, very thankful for everything that you have said today. I know that Soul City was just a big thing during the time of my around at Chapel Hill in the mid 80s. And what I know about that is that if we can learn our history and understand what our ancestors were able to accomplish, then something like Soul City or the collectives we are thinking about won't be unattainable, because we can look back to 1919 and think about what happened in Elaine, Arkansas, and why was it that our enemies rose up against a whole community of people who understood. And we can think about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with our people who had their own city, their own section of the city called, where you all know the story. But the bottom line is we can still think about those things because we are enabled by a power that's bigger than us. And that power commands us that if we're really going to look for justice, we have to be focused on the least of these. And that's what I think I heard from each of you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And if you can, join us in the next panel. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. I must confess it was hard keeping up with everything, with much of what you were saying and sharing, and that is going to be helpful to us. And some kind of way we've got to capture or to recreate the dialogue, maybe a better way of doing it, so that, or continue the dialogue is even better than that, because of the fact that there are so many things that we need to know and understand. This has been very educational for me, and we're looking forward to this next panel also being very educational to us. again, we keep hearing where these systems need to be addressed, and we start where we are, start in our own corners. We're not going to always have big things to happen, but we'll have things that can happen, things that will be substantive in terms of changing the course or the direction that we find society today. And so we thank you all for sharing with us. We have another panel that's coming on in just a few moments. I see that our moderator has signed in, and we're going to remind you, don't hang up even with the panel's over, because there's some very wonderful concluding things that we have before we sign off at the end of the day, and some very special treats that are there. And so we have this panel coming up, and then after the panel, then we're going to have some closing things that'll happen, and then we'll allow you to just to sit and to wrestle with the things that we've talked about and come to some understanding as to where do we go from here. How do we bridge this? How do we find ourselves equipped for the things that are ahead? Sister Harriet Wallace, take it away. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was listening in just a little bit to the previous panel. Sounded pretty good. I'm glad I came in a little early in between working to catch that. Some good stuff. Very powerful, very motivating. We're about to get into another discussion, one that a lot of us have been talking about, and I've talked to a couple of folks on here off to the side about it. We're going to talk about voter suppression, voter oppression, roadblocks, all of that are in the way. And I'm excited to not only be a part of history, this historical time, this moment, but be a part of this panel and discuss with folks. I mean, we've got the best in the business who know what we're talking about, who have been on all sides of campaigning, of elections, and movements, social action. So let me bring them to you. And y'all, if I'm looking to the side, look, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, don't judge me. All right, we've got folks, go ahead and unmute your mics for me. My panelists here, we've got first State Representative Vincent Dixie of District 54, a man you always see in the media because he's always working for his people. I know, because I'm one of his people, and I'm always in touch with him, not just for things going on in my area, but just stuff related in the news. Truly an advocate. Representative Dixie, welcome. So glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it. That, as you said, I chimed in a little earlier on the previous session, and it was very intriguing. I wanted to jump in there myself, so I had to hold myself back.
Me too. Well, thank you for joining us. Next, we've got Tequila Johnson, Powerhouse, a co-founder and co-executive director of the Equity Alliance. And Tequila, you all have been, for a time now, you all have been organizing voter registrations, voter movements, and just doing a lot. So we just want to welcome you to today's panel. How are you?
I am well, Harriet. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And then we've also got with us Erica Perry, attorney Erica Perry, who is with Law for Black Lives. I hope I got that correct. Erica, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. So happy to be here.
Good. Thank you for joining us. And I think Derek, is Derek on? No? Okay. All right. Well, it's just the four of us hanging out. All right. Well, everybody, welcome. We've got a lot to talk about, and I know that this is a topic that is extremely passionate for you all. First, I want to talk about something that came out today. Let me pull my notes up here about it, where here in Tennessee, we're seeing some adjustments made at the polls. There have been more staff hired, more ballot envelope opening machines purchased, backup security plans, intelligence officials, law enforcement being placed at the different voting sites around the state. This sounds pretty serious. I imagine some of that happens to a degree, but stepping it up even more. And you know, Erica, I'll come to you first. Why do you think that we're seeing so much of this focus on security and protection at the polls?
Yeah, I imagine that much of this, I think it's a few things, probably like extremely high turnout. Shout out to Equity Alliance, Black Voters Matters, folks who have been really getting our people out to vote. But I think also because of the fear of white supremacy or the threat of white supremacy, right? So I think people are taking that very seriously. And I know that Black Men Build which is another national organization, are like, oh, how do we protect our people as they go to the polls? And so unfortunately, as has been the case when Black people engage in the practice of democracy, in the practice of voting, white supremacists attempt to discourage us from voting, whether it be through like creating other barriers or actually putting their bodies in front of ours to attempt to prevent us from voting. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, especially as we find ourselves in a moment where folks are really organizing and mobilizing people to remove Trump from office, as we prepare, right, should Biden win, to engage in a battle thereafter. And maybe we can speak more about that later, but for me, that's one of the reasons that I see these things happening.
Representative Dixie, Tequila, I want you all to chime in. How serious of an issue are we looking at when it comes to safety and security at the polls? I know that they're pretty passionate and they're pretty revved up right now. How real is this? Because we say it, but how real is this? And how concerned are you all about people being safe when they go to vote and actually being able to vote? And neither one of y'all feel free to jump.
Let the lady go first. I'm Bill Jones.
Okay. So I mean, yes, echo everything Erica said. Really at the root of why we as Black people, when I say we, people of color, marginalized people need security, is obviously because white supremacy is real. And voting it's a tool. It is not the one thing that's going to liberate us, but it is definitely a tool, and it is one that we are beginning to tap into more. And so we're seeing that tool be attacked the same way when we protest. We see laws centered around protesting, police, securities, white supremacists attacking protesters. The same thing is going to happen at the voting booth, because what that power wants to do is prevent us from tapping in our power, no matter which power that is. So, I think it's very serious. I mean, this year, I can't count the number of threats that I've gotten. I can't count the number of emails that the Equity Alliance has received, the number of attacks that we've received from, white supremacists. So this is a real thing. It is very real. It's just as real as it was when the late John Lewis was being beaten. It's the same thing. They may not be beating us with, putting the dogs on us, but they are calling on another set of dogs through dog whistles, as we heard President Trump say, stand down, but stand by. And that's the same subset of people who essentially were waiting at the end of the Edmunds Pettus Bridge to attack our ancestors. So, this thing isn't changing. It's just reshaping the way it looks.
Wow. So are you all getting threats, Tequila, or what are your, really paint the picture for us, because we want to talk about how real this thing is today.
Yeah, so in 2018, I worked on a presidential election, and not 2018, 2019, 2020, when I worked in the primary, I worked for a candidate that was attacking Trump, like openly saying, impeach Trump, putting money behind impeaching Trump. And when my name went out across the state, I saw those threats become real. I saw my address being listed. I saw, I got things. I saw my trash come up missing on my porch. I saw a lot of things happen. I get emails. I get calls sometimes. I mean, it's real, and I don't talk about it because I don't like to feed the narrative of fear. I don't want my family to fear for my life because I know what I signed up for. I don't want my friends to be afraid. I don't want to feed into the attacks. I don't want more people to attack me, but it's definitely real. And the more you begin to tap into power structures like voting, when you make political statements, whether that's, go vote or defund the police, you better believe there's a subpopulation of people that are going to be ready to attack you. They're going to attack you physically if they can. They're going to attack your livelihood if they can. They're going to attack you on all fronts. And I'm sure Representative Dixie can speak to that as well. So, I'm actually happy that the state is putting security at the polling locations.
Representative Dixie, yeah, go ahead. I was about to bring you in.
Anytime that we, and when I say we, I mean Black people, stand up for ourselves and do something, they put a narrative around us that we're dangerous or it's going to be some type of violence when we stand up for ourselves. So apparently when we voice our opinion, it's equated to violence. hence, as Tequila was talking about earlier, the protesting bills. The people that I know were out there are for the 98% of the people out there protesting were peacefully protesting. And I always question people, tell me why they were out there protesting. And now you have people going out there to vote en masse, Black people going out there to vote en masse. Oh, there's going to be some trouble because Black people, when 2 or more Black people gather, it's probably going to be some trouble. And that narrative, it keeps getting carried down from generation to generation when it's really not us that's doing that. I just suggested when people go to the polls, know what you're supposed to have, number one, have your IDs ready, and know what you're supposed to wear and know your rights. You can wear anything you want to as long as it doesn't have a candidate's name on it. And I want people to understand that, and you stand fast on those 2 things, and you make sure you go out there and you do your civic duty.
I want to share with y'all something that an excerpt from a video from the president's son, and you know, as we talk about the roadblocks that are placed before voters to intimidate, suppress, and you know, scare people out of voting, I want to share this with you. He said in the video, "We need every able-bodied man and woman to join Army for Trump's election security operation at defendyourballot.com. We need you to help us watch them, not just on election day, but also during early voting and at the counting boards. President Trump is going to win. Don't let them steal it. Go to, sign up for Army for Trump." Representative Dixie, I reached out to you, about a week or so ago for a story I was working on. You said you were at the polls in Memphis, and this is for all of our panelists. Are you all seeing any type of this activity? What type of intimidation are you all seeing at the polls, or have you come across any? And what do you think about Army for Trump and those troops being at the polling sites?
Well, normally, the polls that I visit are in Black communities, the ones that I go to. So of course, you're not going to see that happening over here. Even when I was at the Howard School building, I didn't see anything of it, but it's those terms, Army, force, those type of, it's the connotation of those words that say get together. And I want I want Black people to understand, and I want people in general to understand, as Democrats and as Black people, it's not that we don't want guns. We want to take away guns. We're not going to defend ourselves. We're not going to take care and protect our families. It's just that we believe that we should have sensible gun ownership, and there should be some requirements and tools and tests that people should have to pass in order to have them. So don't think for a minute that we aren't prepared or don't have guns or don't have the avenues to protect our families, because we do. But we just have to make sure that we understand that there is a threat out there. Be careful. Keep as I tell my girls, always keep your wits about you when you're in situations. Don't panic, and everything will be fine, because they use this speech and rhetoric in order to build this narrative that it's going to be this war, it's going to be dangerous. And you've heard me say this many times, words have meanings and words have consequences. And when you're in a position of power, which I don't have much power, but I understand that there are some people that actually will listen to what I'm saying. So I have to be careful and purposeful about my words. And we have people, especially in this federal administration, that are careless with their words, and it causes problems. Hence, what happened with the governor in Michigan. And then you try to downplay it like you're the savior. You can't create a problem and solve it at the same time.
So, Representative, so I guess what you're kind of saying is the wording that's going out there is the goal to maybe make people afraid to even go out, be seen to go out and vote, or even be vocal about some of the things that are happening, right? So in that sense, it's kind of how people are being intimidated. Just another way to suppress the voter turnout. But it's not going to happen, because this is just a different day. And I said this a long time ago, like, we're different. This generation is different. We're not afraid. We're not the go along to get along type. If we have to tear up a few things, not literally tear up,
but disrupt the system in order to make something better. And that's what we'll do. We sacrifice, as Tequila said, we knew what we were signing up for when we did this, right? And we talked to our families, and our families were on board with saying, listen, we're behind you. We're going to support you. We're going to do whatever because we believe in what you're doing. We have to fight for our community. So whatever you want to bring, we're ready for. And it's just talk. And we can see, and I'm not trying to make light of this, but we see that it's just talk when we have, y'all see these videos with the Karens out there, right? The Karens and the Ken, they talk strong. And then when somebody actually says, wait, what did you just say? Then it all, oh, no, that's not what I meant. Or if they continue to push forward, the consequence of their action happens. So I think that this Trump administration has made people more brazen in voicing their opinion, but that will stop soon.
Erica, jump in on this. What do you believe the answer to Army for Trump should be, especially when we consider safety at the polling sites and even getting people out to the polls? Some people may be afraid to go to the polls because the Army for Trump may be there. What's the answer to that, do you think?
Yeah, I think a few things. So this is a tactic that white men use, right? This is a tactic of white supremacy, white cis men, right? To automatically make themselves the victim and act as if there's a threat. When actually Trump is the threat, when actually it's like white supremacists who are the threat. And I just want to be clear on what we know, if we've been sitting back looking, right, preparing for election day, we know that when election day comes, that all of a sudden ballots gonna come up missing. All of a sudden, oh, we didn't get your ballot, we didn't get your votes in the mail. So if we're talking about threats, we really want to start. For me, I want to make sure we're clear about who the threat is, and it's white supremacists, it's Trump and his homies. And I think the other I think just want to name, it's not just them, but it's also the institutions that provide covering for them. And so we saw that be the state troopers when our friends and ourselves, when we were out protesting at the plaza, when we were out protesting in the street, it was the police. So we just got to be real honest about who the threat is. It's not Black people. It's not people of color who are voting. And so I think to answer your question around how do we continue to ask our people to go out and vote, some of it for me is rooted in the legacy of our ancestors. It's that like our folks, whether it was Fannie Lou Hamer or our grandparents who voted when white folks were standing at the door, when white folks were threatening them, when white folks were saying, you're going to lose your job if you participate in this democracy. And so that's the legacy that we are born out of, and that's the legacy that we continue. I think the other thing that we're like, y'all, we gotta go vote. And even if like right now, the complexity of who we're voting for, right? We were in the streets all summer saying, defund the police, defund cops in cages, invest in our communities. And now, we find ourselves having to vote for Biden, who is the author of the 94 crime bill, right? Which has led to mass, a huge component of mass incarceration. And one of the reasons why we see school resource officers in schools. And then we got to vote for, and then the other part of this ticket is a prosecutor, right? Who our homies, family members are still locked up in California because of the work she did. So I want to name that as like the landscape that we find ourselves in. And we're still saying, y'all, voice cracking a little bit, go vote, right? Because at the very least, we get to choose our opponent. At the very least, we take away some bits of the way that Trump has encourage white supremacy. Although we're very clear that Biden is too a white supremacist, that imperialism will continue, that he has already mentioned he's not for defunding the police, he's not cutting the police budget, but we're gonna fight him in a different way than we would be fighting Trump, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons that we are like, yo, let's go vote, because this is a different opponent. Trump as an opponent is different than Biden as an opponent, although both of them are extremely problematic.
So does that mean you're going to run for president next time? Are you going to put your name in the hat?
I don't want to be president over this empire, but I do want us to have at least local power, right? I do think we can have some power in Nashville and Tennessee, and if we're working with folks throughout the U.S. South and in Mississippi, and folks are waging a really good fight in South Carolina right now, North Carolina, even Texas is up for grabs. If we can really be in solidarity with folks throughout the South and locally, then I think we do see a path to victory on a national level where we can get somebody who is actually worthy of not just who we are in the United States, but can also, if we have an international perspective, won't continue the work of imperialism, of colonization in service to corporations.
Tequila, I want to bring you in because Erica really kind of set us up for a discussion about getting people to vote. I know that you all have held a number of voter registrations for some years now, but then also you all, and I just thought it was amazing. You all did, what was it, 4 events simultaneously across the state a couple of Saturdays ago to encourage people to come to the polls. How much work left is there to be done when it comes to qualifying people to be eligible to vote, and then getting across some of the roadblocks that are implanted to block you from registering people to vote? And part of this, your response, if you can include the battle to get felons the right to vote, former, those convicted of crimes before, now eligible. And I know that's been part of you all's work too. We could have more people voting if we could qualify more to vote, right?
Yeah, upwards to 20% of Black people aren't eligible to vote just because of previous felony convictions, and that's by design. Tennessee is, ranked the 3rd hardest state to vote in. Ironically, we were the one Southern state that was excluded from the federal preclearance of 1965 Voting Rights Act. At the same time, people were being thrown out of their homes in Fayetteville for voting. So Tennessee has a history of voter suppression. I like to say this is the state, this is the home of the KKK. This is the state that took Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, that was omitted from the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And all of that was centered around voting. It was all centered around democracy. So at the core of everything that has happened in Tennessee has been to limit our access to utilizing the democracy for our benefit or for our gain or as a tool in this fight towards liberation. So, for us, I think because the work Black people are so used to thinking about movement work in this sense of producing a deliverable. What are we producing? And that within itself is a trauma for me. For us, the work voting is a tool that we use, but our sheer existence as people, as Black women leading in this state, is a deliverable within itself. And so the center of our work, while voting may always be a component, because again, that is a tool, but the center of our work is Black joy and Black culture. So if you notice, the events that we've had, they've happened at bars, they've happened at clubs, they've happened on party buses, they've happened at churches, they've happened at laundromats, they've happened at places where Black people naturally live, work, and play, because for so long, our existence has been denied or has been attached to our ability to produce. So I wanna name that and tell that story, that the core of our organizing model is not go vote, go vote, go vote, go vote. That's what people see, because that's what the messaging around what the world is saying right now is go vote. But at the center of what it means to be a Black person in a movement space should be just to exist as yourself, with your natural hair, with your lips, without code switching, without having to be less Black or more Black or whatever the case may be. And so that is essentially the center of our work. But I think when you talk about how hard it is, it's extremely hard. And to kind of add in on to the question that Erica and Vincent mentioned, primarily it's extremely hard because not only are we being attacked through social media in the sense of attacking our leaders, but we're being attacked with misinformation and disinformation. So you will have a whole bunch of information out on the internet where, for one, and I say this with grace for our people, because for generations we have been denied government information and resources. There are other communities that have made wealth, generational wealth, off government contracting, off of government information. And you guys know it just as much as I do. We know their names. They own Nashville, they own Tennessee. And a lot of that came from taxpayer dollars, but they have denied us that democratic access. They've denied us that information access. So when you see information on the internet that's talking about something that's being talked about everywhere, you're attaching yourself to where you can get information from. Much like in our schools, our history has been taught wrong. The same misinformation or disinformation is being spewed on the internet in the sense of like just, you know, Cambridge Analytica and all these crazy things that people probably think is like some theory, some conspiracy theory. It is not, it is real. And those are the attacks that make it harder to organize our people to get out and vote or to even care about voting. And then on top of that, you add a bunch of old white dudes that we have to convince people to vote for. Sorry, this is my trauma coming up. It is extreme, like, I could probably have a better job selling salt to a slug than I can convincing Black people in this political climate where we are hurting. I'm hurting. My people are hurting. We're watching people hurt. We're seeing people be gunned down. We're seeing people being hauled out to cages. We're seeing moms not be able to feed their kids. And I'm having to some kind of way convince people that this tool can help them in overcoming this. And the first thing they say is, we've been doing this for years and nothing has changed. So that within itself is extremely hard outside of just the voter suppression. I want to name that misinformation and disinformation that leads to voter apathy is also a form of voter suppression that we overlook. That is the biggest form of voter suppression that is attacking our people right now, is misinformation and disinformation that leads to voter apathy. But yes, voter suppression is really real in other sense of them passing policies, them passing bills. That is the blatant voter suppression that they're doing. Preventing felons in the state of Tennessee from we're one of two states that do that prevent felons from being able to get their rights back based off of fines, fees, and child support. And to add on top of that, child support continues to accrue once you've already been in prison. So if I go to prison, my child support continues to accrue, and the state can legally take 50% of that and only give the mom 12% of that. So when you break those numbers down, the women are losing, because not only are you dividing our families off of this money that you're going to keep, but the children are losing because we're infighting. And then the men are losing because all of their rights, the things that they could use to go back and gain a sense of dignity and a sense of belonging in society, are being stripped away from them piece by piece. I could talk about that all day, Harriet. To answer your question,
we're gonna do a separate one just for you, Tequila, because you went in on that. Like it was Sunday morning.
I had to cut off the cuss words. I usually be cussing, but I keep looking at my pastor right here at the corner of my eye, and I remember I can't cuss.
I saw the restraint in you. I'm proud today, sis. I'm proud.
Thank you.
You know, I want to, because that was one of the other things that I had on my list here as far as tools of voter oppression and suppression is mis and disinformation. We've seen a lot of this come up. One of them I've talked to, and I'm sure you all talked about it. There was even an ad that ran for Heidi Campbell, calling Gideon's army what a rebel group. They're rioters, you know, all of that. Because anyway, so we saw that, right? And we've seen a lot of other mis and disinformation being put out there. Representative Dixie, let's talk, because we've got to talk about the Black man's vote as well. Those who are eligible to vote. I know it's a big issue in terms of those with a criminal background, but that's a small pocket of it. There already seems to be just ingrained in our society, in our culture, they're not listening to me anyway. Why go vote anyway? And I'm a Black man. I'm definitely not included. So when you think about the information, and a lot of times they're not maybe as plugged in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe not as engaged as collectively as we would like Black men to be. So talk to us about how dangerous it is because we need the Black man's vote. How dangerous it is for them to be getting hit with mis and disinformation that could be keeping them from voting when they're totally eligible to.
Right. Well, I don't want to get Tequila started, but I'm going to try to pick up
Please,
on where
Lord.
she left off. I'm going to pick up on where she left off, is that we can't afford to sit at home. No one can afford to sit at home. We can't sit this one out, right? Regardless of how you feel, we just can't sit this out. We don't have to, as Ms. Perry said, we don't have to have the perfect candidate. We just have to have the candidate that we know what we have to deal with, and we picking the fight, picking our battles, right? And this is something that I hear a lot. Why should I vote for a Democrat? What do they do for us? And that's a very good question. And I want people to understand that as a Democrat in Tennessee, it's difficult, especially for me being in a super minority. But that's why I don't have any aspirations to be the next mayor, the next governor, or anything. I just want to be a state representative and do what I'm supposed to do right now, do it for a period of time, and then leave, right? And leave it better than I found it. And I think what I found is the reason why we feel left out, because we don't feel like the Democratic Party fights for us. If you ask probably most people what is the platform for the Democratic Party, they would say some sort of abortion issues, LGBT, healthcare, and maybe a living wage, right? Two out of those four things don't apply to Black people. Black people, we have our babies, right? That's why they say you don't take care of your kids, as Tequila said about the child support. LGBTQ issues is important, but we feel like we have been left out of that. So I feel like we don't have enough representation at the top levels, right? And Tequila talked about how we're transactional people, and when it comes to campaigning or giving to a cause, it's like if I give you $25, I need a hat, I need a t-shirt. We don't understand like why this money is important in politics, right? Because we need, as you can see, when somebody has these millions of dollars, they can have the ability to run those ridiculous ads as Heidi Campbell's. But what we have to do is we have to start, people like me, ascend to levels of leadership within the Democratic Party, because it's hard to have somebody follow you when nobody looks like you in leadership, right? So even in Tennessee right now, there are no Black men in leadership positions, right? So how can you know what's important to me if I'm not even in the room when it's being discussed? It's the same thing as Ms. Perry said, you still have white men making decisions for us, and we're not included in it. So in order to, I know this is a long answer, but to be a part of the process, you got to know how to impact the process.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I want to ask you, why is that? Because we've even had that discussion on the local level in the Nashville area when it comes to the school board, when it comes to the Metro Council, when it comes to our commissions, all of these decision-making bodies for the city. We have hardly any Black people. We for darn sure have barely any Black men. Why are we not seeing Black men in elected leadership positions, appointed positions? I mean, is it the system? Is it not enough trying to penetrate the system? What's happening?
It's a couple things. One is that we have a power base. We do have a power base here, and we have to advocate for us to be on more boards. We have to put on, we need to be on more, chairmen of the boards, be on all these political boards, any board that you can get on, whether it's the alcohol board, planning commission, we have to get on those boards, number one. And that is critical in being that. So you have to be involved, and you have to be involved to affect the process. Two is, I think that a lot of times people, especially Black men, you don't want to go through the scrutiny that it takes to be a public official. It takes a lot, and you have to have thick skin. And for some reason, people think that you have to be negative or run negative campaigns to be in politics. That's not how it's supposed to be, because I think that negativity is keeping a lot of good people from stepping up. And I'm sorry, but my dog is going to be barking because somebody's outside. But
you want to join in? That's okay.
Right, but do you have a lot of good people that will sit it out because they're like, I'm not going to put myself in that position where they question whether I went to the liquor store or if I went to church, and people just don't want to do that. But we have to, as a power base, the groups like Equity Alliance, Gideon's Army, dads like with Philip Hawkins, we have to come together and we make sure that we get the people that are in these positions already in the mayor's office that can help select these boards, get people in there to make sure that we get on these boards. Because I tell you right now, on the local level, boards have more power than you think.
That's what I'm saying, right? I mean, those are the shot callers, and almost to the point where the mayor's kind of almost a figurehead than a shot caller. Those people, they sleep on them. But okay, so let's kind of move in to another area. Let's talk frustration. Can we talk frustration? Because I think a lot of anybody who's not white, you're frustrated right now. Let's be honest. And there's a different level of frustration because we're talking about multiple pockets of people who feel not included at all. Not even do they feel not included, but they feel pushed away and pushed out and stepped on and stepped over. But bring that home a little specifically about, the Black vote. How do you all see, Erica, Tequila, how do you all see frustration with the climate of things? We had another officer involved shooting that came out, the video we saw today. You're waking up to death, right? You're tired. You're tired of being tired and you don't even know what else to say or do. What role do you all see frustration playing in people either being motivated to vote or saying, forget it, what's the point? I'm not going to vote at all.
Yeah.
I think go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Beard.
Okay, yeah. So I think a few things. People are, deeply frustrated and heartbroken right now, as can be expected. And I think all types of people are frustrated. So Black people, Indigenous folks, Latinx folks, LGBTQ folks who are working class white people, cash poor, like all of us are frustrated. And so I think that we find ourselves in a moment where we can either choose to let our frustration, and for me, it's my rage, right? We can choose to use our rage to build the future and where we know we deserve. I think voting is one of those tools, but I want to just name that so much of that work for us is, comes out of the way that we channel our work is through the Black National Assembly. So we were like, hey, we're frustrated, right? This iteration of democracy, this political system is not working for us. But we want to gather and be like, what are our collective needs and how do we fight for them together? So I think that's one way we're dealing with frustration. I think the other thing that we're finding is this sense of individualism. And I think that white supremacy teaches us individualism. So while we might have some Black men who are like, I'm gonna vote for Trump because I care about my pockets, or because I want to control people's bodies, or because I want to use this idea of religion as a cover to vote for Trump, right? And so for us, we're like, we want to also combat individualism and be like, actually, I don't feel free until all of my people are free. And so I think in the chat box, Jamel was like, yo, we should be centering the experiences of Black women. And if we're doing that, right, and when I say Black women, I mean Black trans women, Black cis women, non-binary folks, if we're centering those experiences, we lean into Black feminists, the Kabaha'i River Collective, who was like, oh, when Black women are free, all of us are free. And so when we start from there, if we are working towards ensuring that all of us are free, if that's our politic and that's how we're voting, then I think that we find out that we can move through both individualism, isolation, and frustration. But I think we got to do it in solidarity and we got to do it together. And so I think for me, I'm like so excited about the work that Equity Alliance is doing to bring our people together, to get out and vote. I think the work that Free Hearts is doing, who's like, yo, our people can't vote because they got fines and fees. So we're going to pay for each other's fines and fees. That's an act of solidarity. I think the other work we talking about is the homies at Gideon's Army, who's like, oh, we taking care of each other. That too is an act of solidarity. And so for me, I was like, what radicalized me, one of it was like Fred Hampton, who's like, oh, we don't fight racism with racism. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with water. So we're not gonna fight racism with racism. We're gonna fight it with solidarity. And I think that's across like all the ways that we show up, but centering the people who are most marginalized, the people who are most harmed by this system. And that's Indigenous folks, that's Black people, that's Black trans folks. And I think if we can do that, if we can like come out of our isolation, then we move through our frustration through some real solidarity and get some real wins, build some real political power so that we find ourselves and our needs getting met.
Good stuff. Tequila, you want to weigh in on that?
After that.
Yeah, touche to everything she said, but one of the things that I have been actively, and Micky ScottBey was on here, and she and I have had these conversations, and we've been working with several people, is healing. I don't think we can unify, or we can be in solidarity, or we can assemble, or we can do anything until we realize that we have some trauma that's both generational, that exists, where we have not just had a space to, as the church folks say, lay our burdens down. You know, there at one point that was the church, but I'm just gonna be real with y'all, within our generation, there's a lot of church hurt and a lot of church trauma. And we don't have these conversations. We don't have safe spaces where we can show up and say, I'm already hurting and you're hurting me more. Or I don't agree with that because I was hurt in this way. Or I'm uncomfortable with this because this has hurt me before. And so when you say, well, let's just all come together, or, you know, as Vince says, let's just do this, I'll be the first Black woman to tell you, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And most people on this call don't feel comfortable doing that. And it's not because we don't love each other or we don't want each other to be free. It's because we've never had a space to just exist and heal. We've never had spaces where you could just show up as Harriet and not Harriet, the news anchor, or Vince and not Vincent, the representative, or Erica and not Erica Esquire. You know what I mean? It's not just enough to be Black. You have to be Black and society has taught us that our existence is attached to a deliverable. So I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me. It's harder to work with Black people because there's this notion of solidarity that I can't even define because I've never experienced. And so I don't think it's going to happen until we can like heal. And that, you know, I always say self-healing is community healing. I'm going on my own spiritual healing journey, and everybody else should. But how many Black people have had the privilege, and I use that word loosely, but how many Black people have had the exposure, have had the privilege, have had the experience to actually even dig deep into what that means? Most of us are one generation removed from the hood or from sharecropping. So I think we got to really like think about what is it going to take for us to get beyond just coming together with some goals, like, you know, saying, let's go do this. And because to answer what you asked, Vincent, I think that Black men are in crisis. Black women are, you know, in survival mode, and Black men are in crisis, and we are acting. That frustration is not frustration. It is a cry for healing and a cry for, as Erica said, solidarity. And it's coming off like we're frustrated, we're angry, we're mad. No, we're hurt. We've watched from generation to generation, we've watched our men be killed in front of us, our kids be ripped away from us, people put in cages. And I don't know about y'all, I'm hurting. And I've been praying about it, Pastor, but I'm still hurting and it's still happening. And I don't think that I can heal myself by myself. And I don't think we can heal through solidarity without a space to just exist.
I would like to add to what Tequila said. It's a lot of hurt and frustration, but I also, on the flip side of that hurt and frustration is what's driving people to the polls as well. And I think that there is, especially in our community, we're sitting on a powder keg, like Tequila said. We're and Miss Erica Perry said, we're tired of being tired. I'm just tired anymore. I don't want to argue anymore. I don't try to prove my point anymore. I'm a human. I'm a man. If you don't respect that, then I'll make you respect me. But we are a powder keg that's ready to blow at any moment. So when we see these things about this rhetoric about, oh, there's going to be a war after this, or if Trump loses, there's going to be a war, a race war, and all that stuff. I really think that that's talk, but I also know that people are like that because of that hurt. People will lash out because they have no other way to express themselves. because we're tired of talking, we're tired of asking, we're tired of doing things the right way, try to be the most polite way to do it. Sometimes you just got to take the power. And that's where we are with this. We just got to take the power. We got to put people that have like ideals and mindsets to take that power. Put people in office that's going to actually do the work. It's one thing to be a candidate and say you're going to do all this stuff, but when you're in office, like Tequila said, I have to deliver something for my community. So like as some of my white colleagues, even a Democrat colleague, they may not have to do this. They just want somebody there that's not going to hurt their community. And when I get elected to a Black, they expect for me to bring home the bacon. There's something I have to bring home for my community. I can't be just a seat here and a pretty face. Now I'm just a pretty face, but I'm filling this seat. You know what I mean? Well, I'm just joking on that. But my point is that we have to be mindful and you have to be purposeful. You can't be a scared Negro in a seat because you're worried about what's going to happen after this. I'm going to do what I feel is right, that where I can go to sleep at night, and whatever happens with it, I can honestly say I did what was on my heart. I didn't do it with any ulterior motive. I did it to make my community better, and I didn't do it to make Vincent better. I did it to make my people better and life after me better.
All of y'all touched on something again, as we're still kind of talking about the connection to voting, is the solidarity, is the cohesiveness between the different efforts related to the Black movement. And so Tequila, you and I have had, we've had some discussions, about coming together. It doesn't matter whose logo is bigger. It doesn't matter whose name is even, on the flyer. It doesn't matter. What matters is the result. Like my husband says, results matter, right? So if we know that we need this collective, unified base, and let's talk about the Equity Alliance, because this was the precipice for the Equity Alliance. This was the birthplace, because if I remember right, you said you all did not see a PAC out there for Black women. So you started it yourself, right? And we see what was birthed out of that effort. And so how do we say, just come as Harriet and leave your title at the door? Come as, Erica and Vincent and leave your titles at the door, so we can build a base that can create the breeding ground for, foot soldiers, for fundraising, for support when they're in office and maybe some attacks come against them, to organize voting events. Can we ever tell people to leave their title at the door?
Yes, we can. I always say that I never want to run for office. I always say, again, this is a hard time for electoral organizer. Y'all got to deal with my frustration and fire right now. I'm sorry, y'all. Pray for me.
Keep it going. We're here for it.
Things around me, whatever. But right now, I just got a lot of fire, and it may be misplaced. So I'm asking for your forgiveness in advance. Hallelujah. but yeah, I think the biggest thing, Harriet, is like, we can say that, but like I always say, I have no desire to run for office. None whatsoever. And the reason why is because I don't ever want to be beholding to having to respect a certain subset of rules. And Angela Davis lays that out in her book, that politics is no place for radical movement building. And I'm that person that kind of toddles the line. Like sometimes I might be leaning over here on the political side with this shirt on, but then I get real ghetto and I'm back over here being super radical in myself. And it may be confusing to people, but that is really the complexity of who we are as a people. We are that and then some. I am every woman. Like it's all in me, and that's in every single word. And I think that we have to make space. Like now that I'm in a position where people listen to me, which is crazy, by the way. I struggle with acknowledging that I'm in a power position. It's crazy. Impeach me.
Own it.
But
accept it.
Now that we're stepping into that position, I feel comfortable saying, leave your title at the door. Like, I mean, leave your title at the door. I feel comfortable saying that, but there was a point in my career where I didn't feel like I could go to certain people. I didn't even feel like I could come to you and say that, Harriet. Not because you made me feel that way, but because my own insecurities and trauma made me feel that way.
That's how we are. Mm-hmm.
It's how we are. And so now that I'm in a position, I have to intentionally be the person that makes it okay for other people to do that. And I think it just starts like a snowball. It starts with me. If I do it, if Erica does it, if Vincent does it, if you do it, if Kelly Smith says, just show up. I just want you here. You know what I mean? If we all say that, then we begin to set a precedence. We begin to reform or change what organizing looks like. You know what I mean? We get to shift the culture of organizing in the city, and we don't leave it up to white people to define us or to systems to define how we do politics. I don't care if you show up to the Capitol in a suit, Vincent. I really don't care. You know what I mean? But society does, because we've allowed it to define us. So I think that's the big piece, is like taking back ownership of our culture and what it means for us. And like people who are in position to do that, naming it.
One thing I wanted to add to that, if you don't mind, is one thing you said that I think that everybody has to understand, like we have different lanes. It takes all different walks of society. If everybody walked the same path, it would be a boring world, right? So we have to walk in different lights. And you say that, I couldn't be a legislator because I'm an activist. And I agree with that. An activist and a legislator have two different distinct roles, but I think they work together. I think, and this was the funniest thing. Like, I've never been an Al Sharpton fan, but one time I went to see him speak. Well, he came to speak to a conference that I was at, and he made the most sense. He said that, I'm an activist. He said exactly what Tequila said. He said, I'm an activist. He said, my job is to support people like me to I go outside and turn up the heat, and I ask you, is it hot enough in there yet? And if you come out and say, no, it's not hot enough, my job is to go back outside and turn up the heat. And then I go back in and say, is it hot enough for you yet? Because if it's hot enough, I can adjust the temperature for you. So we have to work together. There's a need for all of these grassroots organizations and politicians to work together, but in the past, they have not worked together. And that is the bridge that we need to build to move forward. And like and somebody said in the chat about community, people always say, oh, we got to bring the community together. We got to bring the community together. Like when I was growing up, the community is what took care of me. I was raised in a single parent home. My mom worked all the time. I was a latchkey kid, but I never went hungry. I always had my homework done, and I was in the house before street lights came on. But nowadays, I bet you most people don't know the names of the people that live on either side of them, much less down the street to the stop sign. So we have to make sure that we get out and get to know our neighbors and build that community back again.
Erica, did you want to get in on any of that?
Yeah.
And I won't call Tequila activist again.
Yeah, I think it's a little complicated. For me, I agree with it to some extent. I think about Ella Baker, who taught us how to fight, if y'all know the song. But who was like, oh, when I go into a room, I leave my relationships, I leave all of that at the door. I come in and I'm ready to dig deep. And so I come in to make the best decision as possible. So I think, yes, we leave our titles at the door, but I think our experiences have to come with us. So my experiences as a lawyer, that has to come with me, right? I don't come in with the title of like, yo, I'm a lawyer, I know more than anybody. Nah, but like, I have seen the way the criminal legal system works and that it's unreformable and that prisons and police must be abolished. Like, that is an experience I have, both because I'm a lawyer, but also because I'm a Black person who has experience with people who have been and currently incarcerated. I think the other thing that feels important around creating blocks, like working together, is, I think, as Tequila said, like definitely healing, and that being ingrained in the work we do together. And also, I think a commitment to principle struggle, right? So where we're like, oh, we're gonna actually struggle together around our politics, struggle together around our ideology so that we come out with the best decision. But I think that takes a certain degree of rigor, right? Emotional rigor and a certain degree of healing. So when you like, Erica, I actually don't agree with that. I'm not taking it personal. I'm like, yo, let's struggle together. Why not? Right? How can we be better? So I think those few things we can do together, and that might lead us in the right direction. And I just want to be clear that these things don't happen overnight, right? That movements, that works it's messy. It's messy because we showing up with trauma, we showing up with our own experiences, but we're like, yo, things are so deeply effed up right now that I want to figure it out with you. I love Black people so deeply. I'm like, I want to figure it out with you, right? So I'm willing to sit in a room, engage in some political struggle. I'm willing to heal, right? So I can work through some shit with you, so that we can like at least get some sort of freedom. And that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, we are at the 4 o'clock mark. I believe our sessions to end at 4. I believe in being on time most of the time. And I want to be respectful. My husband to the side. Anybody ask you? Okay, I'm on time. I'm on time because I'm on my time. Anyway.
No shame, Vincent.
All right. Again, I want to be respectful of the other sessions that are coming up. I want to say thank you to our panelists. This was not just informative, but it was powerful. It was insightful, and I'm just like, I felt your fire over there, Khaleesi. I got it, Tequila. I got it. If anybody Game of Thrones folks, never mind. But anyway, I felt the fire. I mean, really, there's a lot of work that has been done, a lot of groundwork done by our ancestors, and a lot of work done by our people today. Some, who are here on the panel, continuing to build the house. And we talked about it before. Tequila was on a different panel with me, and we talked about how, we saw, if nothing else from Chadwick Boseman's life, that you don't have to be leading a movement. You don't have to be writing a policy. You don't have to be, in the middle of a protest to be part of progress. Make change in your own way. And each of our panelists here are in unique corners of America right now, of Nashville right now, Tennessee right now, making a difference in their own way. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this panel. Thank you to the organizers who invited me. Any parting words for any of our panelists before we head out?
Folks can just look in the chat. Please register for the next BNA, because we really are trying to build political power. That's the goal. So if you're feeling that, right, you're trying to do some stuff that Fannie Lou Hamer was on, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, hit us up. We in it.
Excellent. Yeah, and really, really appreciate everyone for just such an engaging panel. I mean, it's funny, I don't know if you all were on some of the earlier ones, but there's so many connections between what we said and people shared during the faith panel that transition into the policy panel, that transition into the justice panel, and they all just kind of intertwine. Like Erica, you had a couple of comments around, combating individualism, right? And, that really connected to, there's a whole debate in that faith panel about individual focused theology and what does that mean in terms of community? Meaning, hey, because I think it was earlier, Reverend Haynes, his comment was, individual piety without social responsibility is heresy, right? And, so that was just a very engaging connection. And, then later, Tequila, you laid out some real powerful stuff just around, voting being a tool, and, we see it being attacked, and, that there's this subpopulation that's really trying to do that. And also, I love your quote about misinformation that leads to apathy is the biggest form of voter suppression. And I think that's just very powerful, because it just speaks to the injustice that can be created when people are discouraged to vote. And it really even connected to what you were saying in the beginning, Ms. Wallace, where, you're just talking about the Army references for one side of the political spectrum. And, that imagery, it almost kind of forces you to think twice, right? And that's kind of that hesitation that, creates this negative connotation around this whole voting process. I really appreciated that. And then Representative Dixie, just love the fact that you're able to lay out that commentary about, anytime we stand up for ourselves, we're perceived as dangerous. And I think just calling that out and making that very clear, I think helps destigmatize the reality of what we're doing, right? And I appreciate you just kind of providing that clarity. So we've had a great day, and you all have really just kind of tapped it off. There's been some amazing just online videos that have kind of empowered people. But then there's also been some awesome songs. I don't know if y'all heard that Fight On song, but man, that thing is stuck in my head. Like I can't get that out of my head every time I just hear the word fight. So we're going to wrap it up, right? We've got a couple more items, because we definitely want to, transition into. I know a lot of people, you all have been waiting patiently to see the grand reveal of the portrait. So we're going to share that. We also have some stuff from the next generation, and when we say next, we truly mean next. So you'll even see a couple cameos from children of the movement, and then we also have some nice words and encouragement from the Jubilee Singers from Fisk. So I'm energized. I don't know about you all, but I'm energized. I'm pumped. It's a lot, and it's almost like a workout, though. You go through that kind of exercise, and you work, and you're tired, and you feel that exhaustion. But then that next day, your muscles rebuild, and I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of take all that in, drink some protein shakes or whatever it is that kind of gets you back in, and pivot into what's next, and just continue to fight on. So I'm going to pass it to Omari, and I think, Omari, you're going to do a big reveal for us, right?
I am. Thank you for having me, of course, throughout the day. And the piece is still a work in progress, but I'm going to kind of let you take a look at what we have so far. And so what I've been working on today is thinking about that idea of what justice, activism, truth looked like while Kelly Miller Smith Sr. was fighting, and what it looks like today. And so the scene that you'll see in the bottom, and we will have the opportunity to kind of take a closer look at that. Great, the screen's being shared now, so you can kind of see some of the progress. But looking at what some of the history, really the history of the struggle has looked like in the United States for such a long time. And given that, as you do kind of take a few moments, I would love for us to just take a pause and acknowledge our ancestors, Kelly Miller Smith Sr., but also hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that came before us that allowed us to maintain this space and do the work that we do and keep on struggling for the thing that they believed was owed to us, that they knew that they may not see. So yeah, we'll just take a couple of seconds and then rejoin. Ashe. Yeah. And so that's kind of what today's been about for me. As an artist, I'm always really grateful to be able to help record history. Today has been a historic day. It's also a day that you can visually communicate, and the way that I've found to share my story and the stories that I feel like are essential to sharing are through paintings, drawings, artwork, and we see all artists doing that in all sorts of methods, whether it's poetry or music. And so, yeah, so I'm just grateful that I was able to share that, record this piece of history, and find my way to tell the truth about a story that as Dr. Lawson shared earlier this morning, that a lot of times history is told in a way that isn't accurate. And so I feel like as an artist, I have the ability to at least share my perspective and be as honest as I possibly can. And so I'm grateful that you all were here to join us, the whole family, and by family, that's the Kelly Miller Smith family and the Vanderbilt Divinity School family, the CDF, and the list goes on. But there's just so many people that have been so instrumental and allowing me to continue to make work that means something to me, and I'm glad that it means something to you. So thank you.
This is a call to action. Share your skill, use your talent. Sign petitions. Sign petitions. Adopt a politician, reclaim your community.
Practice what you preach. Embrace diversity. Make a plan to vote and bring 2 friends or family members with you.
The impulse that led to the sit-in movement had been growing for some time, and it was the Negro college students in Nashville and in other cities who would bring it into action.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. So we shall overcome some. We shall overcome someday.
When the chips are down and they're not on you, oh, fight on. When the battle's long and soldiers few, whoa, fight on. Over mountains high, through valleys low, oh, fight on. When lightning flashes and thunder rolls, oh, fight on.
Let me thank everyone for sharing with us today. And it was a tremendous blessing. There's nothing else I really need to say, except that we know that the work is undone, is unfinished, and we still have a lot that's ahead of us. And so we've been charged, we've been challenged, and now we have to go forward. God bless you. Dr. Harris?
Yes, Kelly and the Keller Mills Smith family, the Keller Mills Smith Foundation, I want to thank you. I want to thank your family. I want to thank the grandchildren for their voice at the end. I want to thank you all for having the deep spirit and legacy of Keller Mills Smith Sr. to the point when you all envisioned how to celebrate his birthday. You brought the entire community. You brought Vanderbilt Divinity School, where you served as Dean of Black Church Relations for 16 years. You brought the nation. You brought young people together to discuss how his leadership legacy can be perpetuated through the voices of so many people, Black people, and bringing forth our ancestor spirit to celebrate. So we thank you so much for that. I want to thank Shatika Brown, Erica Johnson. I want to thank them, Teresa Smallwood with the Racial Collaborative here, Dean Towns, for allowing us to come together with you in order to pull off this powerful day of witness on behalf of justice and the future of Black people. We look forward to further collaborations like this. And as so many have said today, the only way to liberate ourselves is to bring that liberation to bear upon our love for our people. So thank you so much. And it's been a great, wonderful day.